Hello and welcome to Play Pause Turn. In this podcast, we discuss all things to do with TV, films, games and literature. We give our thoughts on the media we've been enjoying, old or new, and we comment on anything topical. Okay, so our hosts today are myself, John, and we have Mark and Alex, and I have our usual intro question. We're talking about Shang-Chi, the new Marvel film, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. Or is it The Legend of the Ten Rings?
The Legend of the Ten Rings, yeah.
I'm sure someone's going to correct me on the podcast. And so here's your intro question. Because there's a scene in the film, quite a comical scene, where we don't want to give too much spoilers away here, but a name is discussed. So we'll talk about this later on in the spoilery section. But if you had to hide your identity, Mark, what would your new name be?
Oh, that's a good question. I've just sort of realised what is my name backwards, and it would be what? Cram? Would it be M-A-R-K? Yeah. Cram Helms. I don't know. I think it's something.
I think Cram Helms might be misconstrued there, Mark. Actually,
yeah, it could be. Yeah, like as someone who used to
that's
love
your porno name, I think. Actually,
yeah, I think that's my porno name. Sorry, yeah. Like as someone who loved like Rick Mel, God rest his soul, like and the bottom Ed Edmonds and like Eddie Hitler, I think would be a great name as well. I'd want like a really
I'd have to argue that Hitler's probably not a good name to choose.
No, it's not a good name. No. I wouldn't say it's a good name. No, but like, I just don't think I could get away with like Clint or like a Bond or anything like that. It's very like you've got to appreciate your levels. I think when you're thinking this as well. So like Rick Mel was like Richie Richard, I think in Bottom. So I think I'd like in Gary Neville, the football, like his father, rest in peace, was also called Neville. So I think I'd want something like that. So I like Dave or something like that. It's got my work. It's called Jack Daniels, if you can believe that as well. So which I just think is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, something like that. I can't really think of one right now, but something really inappropriate or like a bit stupid. I think I would probably like. I can't get away with like sophisticated names like James and Henry and all that. I'm just not like that, unfortunately.
How about you, Alex?
Well, yeah, I was talking to this with my wife, and the thing is, I've always wanted to.
My wife, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't. Sorry.
So instead of being
it.
Alex, I'd always wanted to be a Xander, because I thought no one really goes for that name. It's quite unusual, and
apart from Xander and Buffy.
Apart from Xander and Buffy, who's a little bit of an idol, but not quite. But yeah, so I just thought, oh, good, I could be called Xander, and it's just not a name that people, you say, hey, I'm Xander, and they go, oh, hi, Xander, nice to meet you. But it's just, I can't pull it off. So,
no.
But Xander is the closest that I could do to my name that's not really my name. So,
do you know, what random name, like what normal name I really like is Art. It's like people are called A-R-T. There's a guy who works on Heat called Art Linson. I think he did the cinematography on it. I like the name Art. I think that's such a cool name, but I'm not good enough. But I'm not cool enough to have that name. But yeah, we have a good surname with it as well.
Is it short for Arthur?
I don't know. Actually, it's a good question. I've always just seen it as Art and not as Arthur.
Arthur Garfunkel. Yeah, I can see why he calls himself Art now.
Yeah, I can maybe is so. Yeah, but I like the name Art. That's a good name. I like that name.
Nice.
Well. Yeah, I mean, my one's much more obvious.
Go on, John.
It's one I actually am known for. When it's mentioned, people go, oh, yes, that's attributed to me, and that's Lord Laser Thighs. It's not subtle. I don't think I'd be able to hide in the crowd.
That must be your porn name. I'm sorry. If that one's mine, that one's got to be your porn name. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Is it your Facebook teacher name? Because all the teachers on Facebook all have to give different names.
No,
they're not allowed to.
I am not on Facebook. I left Facebook on Brexit Day and never went back. All the horrible vile vitriol that ensued, and I've never gone back. I've never looked back.
I'm the same with Twitter.
Yeah, you're still on Twitter, John.
Well,
I think
small, baby steps.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah. Right. So we have all watched Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is the latest. Is it the 22nd or 23rd Marvel film?
I've lost count.
I think it might be 23rd. Wasn't Black Widow the 22nd? Fingers are tapping, folks. We'll find out soon.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm now searching Google very quickly.
I remember rewatching all the films over lockdown. I think there were 21. And we're going to give our thoughts on that. And obviously, if you're listening to this, then you should have seen it already. If you haven't seen it already, go and watch it and then come back.
It's actually the 25th. Sorry,
25th. Oh wow!
I do beg your pardon. Sorry.
We'll give our thoughts on the film, initial thoughts, and then we'll dive in a bit more and sort of pick it apart. But Alex, what were your overarching thoughts of the film?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought when I heard about the film, I wasn't particularly endeared to it because I hadn't read any of the original comics. So I kind of went in thinking, oh, well, this should be enjoyable, but I'm not really expecting that much. And actually, I was really pleasantly surprised. I think how they captured the sort of Chinese heritage and background was really good. And I loved the fight scenes. I think they were really well choreographed, and the story didn't necessarily need to make sense, but it was enjoyable too. So I think that's like really good for this kind of film.
Awesome. Bobby. Sorry, Bobby. I said Bobby and he's not here. We're missing him,
similar.
That's why.
One's white, one's
Mark,
black.
sorry.
Other than that, we're very similar. No hair though.
You look very similar to Bobby in many ways, Mark.
I'd say that's a massive compliment. He's much more
okay.
handsomer than me as well. So there we go. Yes.
Mental note: remove Bobby from the script. Mark, I'm guessing you enjoyed it. You're more of an aficionado of the comics. Have you read the comics before the film? And did you know what you're going in when you went to watch the film?
Like, not as much as usual. So I have read some of the comics, and they come out. So there was a massive craze in the 70s after like Bruce Lee of kung fu films. They were like the massive thing after Bruce Lee came out as well. So essentially, Shang-Chi was made to be like the Marvel version of Bruce Lee.
Well, he was modelled after him, wasn't he?
Yes, he's very much modelled on him as well. Yeah. I mean, the comics have aged quite badly as well. There's a whole thing about the Fu Manchu with the bad guy and that sort of thing as well. He's always been a fairly standard character. Like, he's never been like in the A-list as you would associate with Marvel. But the comics were of their time. They were quite fun. He's intermittently used at the moment. There wasn't a lot of him in the 90s and 2000s where I was kind of collecting everything as well. But he's always been like a good character. He shares a lot of similarities with Iron Fist, which of course had the ill-fated Netflix show as well.
Didn't
but
go
overall,
so well, did it?
It did not. The second series is a lot better than the first, but it's still poor.
Okay.
Yeah, you've not missed anything. So he's always been like in that kind of like C-list character, like the Guardians were before they got massive as well.
Is he sort of character that would be like in team-ups and things, not rather than...
Yeah, he sort of would be, yeah. So like, if they did a big crossover, he'll probably be in it sort of thing, But like, have I read a lot of his like solo stuff? Not as much, no, but he'll be in and around. He's kind of like a Luke Cage sort of character again, someone who obviously did their own comic, but also would be in the big team ups as well. So I think Marvel have kind of got him from obscurity and trying to boost him up a little bit. I like to do with Guardians as well.
Okay, so what do you think of the film?
So before I start about the film, I actually re-listened to our Black Panther review from a few years ago, and I absolutely got all the names wrong, and the mispronunciation's terrible. So I'm going to apologise now because I'm going to get them wrong again here. Because
this is why we've got you on the podcast, actually.
Exactly, you can make fun of the white South London middle-aged man. There you go. So yeah, so I will try my best, but I may get them wrong. In regards to the film, I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I liked it for many reasons. As I said to you guys on the chat when we were talking about it on the mobiles and that, it's kind of restored my faith a little bit in Marvel, because I didn't like Far From Home that come out a couple of years back. I was really disappointed with Black Widow. I thought that was really sort of mediocre. Again, on the TV shows, I liked WandaVision. Falcon Winter Soldier didn't work for me. And Loki was patchy. But this is just, it's so good. And the reason why I like it is because there's so many different parts of it for me that work. So it isn't just the typical Marvel origin story. There's more to it than that. I think and this is where I'm going to get all the names wrong now as well. I think Tony Leung as Wenwu as Shang-Chi's father is fantastic. I think, in fact, it's more about him, the film, than and about Shang-Chi, his journey.
He's a massive hero in sort of Chinese films. He's like De Niro of Chinese cinema. Really, very, very, very famous in his own way. Well, he's very famous in China for his acting. And there's been a lot of Oscar-winning films he's been in as well. So yes, I think that was a very inspired casting. Do carry on. Sorry.
It's fun, and I thank you. And much like Alex said, like everything about it, I just think is great. So it looks great. I think the cinematography is stunning, particularly towards the end when we go into the mystical kingdom, that sort of thing. It looks beautiful. The fight scenes are fresh. They are different. It's not just the fact that it's Marvel's first kung fu movie, but I think the choreographing is absolutely fantastic. And actually, all the characters, I really, really like all the characters, and they all get a chance to shine as well. So I know that we're going to talk about certain performances as well. But for example, and I'm going to destroy his name, sorry, is it Aquafina as Katie? Aquafina, sorry, beg your pardon, yeah. Now, normally the comic relief in films are either really good or really bad. They either add to it or they're a bit annoying and they don't really work. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. I really thought she brought a bit more of a groundedness around it, while the more fantasy elements were coming in.
Don't go too deep into it.
No, I'm not going to go too deep. No. I won't go too deep. But I loved her performance. I thought everyone was excellent as well. I really like Simu Lee as Shang-Chi. And the reason why it was complex, it was funny, it had action, but it had a real seriousness to it. And real feeling as well when we get more into the plot points. It also has some brilliant cameos as well. And what I think Marvel does really well now is that they can, because they're 25 movies in, they can do a bit like the comics where you can have little cameos of characters just in and out as well. And I really like that. But overall, I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I went in not sure. I went in thinking this is probably going to be a standard Marvel film, but I think it'll be all right. It'll be about average. But not my socks off. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
I mean, I think it's good. I think with all the connected Phase 1 to 4 Marvel films with the Avengers in, I mean, they're great films. But as maybe more casual Marvel film viewer, I think these standalone films work really well. Like the Ant-Man films and Black Panther. I think, yes, they are all linked, but having these offshoot stories, I think, works really well. It's a very clever way of, rolling them out without people getting too tired of the cash cow experience. I mean, Star Wars made that mistake, didn't they? Really?
It was rushed, wasn't it?
And I think Marvel they obviously had this very long long-term plan for their films, but. I mean, personally, I really enjoyed the film. I'm a big fan of martial arts cinema anyway, and I've always been a big Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen fan. I love all the Ip Man films and all the early Armor of God and police story films with Jackie Chan. And I will talk about some of the set pieces in the film later on. But I think there's lots of very nice nods to those films in this as well. It was very much. A celebration of the culture and the scene, and I really enjoyed it. So I think we do need to now warn people that we're going to sort of spoil aspects of the film. If you haven't seen it, do come back to this after you've watched the film. Let's talk about some of the standout set pieces and scenes. Alex, we all need to talk about the bus scene, don't we? Really?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me it was it's funny because for me it was reminiscent of Nobody.
Which I must see.
If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing.
What film's that? Sorry.
So Nobody. It's an action film done by the same director as John Wick.
Has it got the guy from Better Call Saul in it?
Oh, well, that's Bob.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so he plays like an old school hitman type person. I don't want to spoil it, but he comes in as a nobody, and then he ends up picking a fight in the bus scene, and that's what Nobody's about. But it's lots of close quarter movement and what was brilliant about this bus scene was that it was, it used all of the elements of the bus so well. So you had a articulated one, so you knew it was going to break at some point. You had the classic bit where he kind of didn't have anything to fight with, so he used his coat,
which is a Jackie Chan reference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is and so again, when you see that, you just kind of go, oh, "That's nice." I forgot the reference, but you see these nods, and there's lots of sort of lightness of sort of getting around all of the enemies and trying to deal with them. The commentary was just so funny. The thing is, it set the tone for the film, and what it was is, yes, we're going to have some serious fights and stuff, but don't take it too seriously. It's still a Marvel, and that was quite nice because it kind of just it set that tone straight away. So yes, there was consequences, but don't worry, there's going to be a nice gag just around the corner that you can have, yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really sharply choreographed, and obviously what's nice about it is it also moves the story forward, which is nice. So it's not just there's a fighting scene and then they get to wherever they were going to go. It's actually, now that's moved the story along. So Katie's like, what the F? And
yeah,
it really just helped sort of show that he's not a nobody. All of a sudden, he's got this backstory that we haven't explored much with her.
I get the feeling how I felt when it led up to that bus scene was we know he's gonna, his fists are gonna start flying at some point, and this was kind of the reveal, wasn't it, of his abilities? Mm-hmm. We had the backstory of his father. We had some of that already, yeah. But it was very much, yes, this is it now. We can sort of sit back and relax and enjoy the martial arts. It. But in terms of the fight sequences, there were a lot of very famous sort of stuntmen involved in it. You've got Pen Zhang, who was, and Guillermo Crispo, and Andy Cheng, who was actually on the Jackie Chan stunt team, as well as Brad Allen, who I think is now no longer with us. And
the film's dedicated to him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I think he may have died after the film was made or during the filming.
Yeah.
So it's got that veneer of the professional industry and the culture behind it, and it was very obvious. It dripped through the film, and the inventiveness of the scenes. I know some people didn't like the the fight scene on the scaffolding. Alex, you didn't like it, did you? You went and saw it in IMAX, didn't you?
Yeah. So I saw it in the IMAX, and the thing is, I always got vertigo because it's very well shot, and they very much emphasise the peril and the height. So it was really well done. But I was just like, oh, come on! There's times when you just want to have 16:9 and bars at the top and bottom, so you can just sort of say it's okay, it's just a film.
Yeah.
But again, the fighting was consistently good throughout. And it didn't really dip. There were a couple of bits where the fighting was less important, but then they just showed you more CGI. But the thing is, when they had a fight scene that was choreographed, it was done well, and I think that really showed.
Again, for a martial arts fan, I like the fact that they used a whole variety of styles here to show the different aspect of the story in terms of the historical aspect and the modern. So there's that fight scene right near the beginning, just outside the gate, or in the outskirts of the forest of Tao Lo, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a sort of a Buddhist sort of Shaolin style. Sometimes I think it's called Shaolin Kung Fu, and that scene's almost balletic, isn't it? When both characters, you've got Zhu Wenwu and is it Lee, the girl he falls in love with? She's called Lee, isn't she? Yeah, she's Lee, played by Fala Chen, actually, who was another quite famous actress. When they fight, I loved that style because it was a mixture of the standard and the kind of the fantastical with the leaves moving around behind, and also foreshadowing plot details later on. You know, I mean, it kind of it almost moved into Tai Chi, didn't it? Really, where they were moving around, all that sort of Brazilian boxer fighting, where they move their legs around. You know, and the whole tu shell, which is the pushing hands, the movements, which are parts of the forms. But then you've got this sort of explosive style of fighting that Shang uses, which is called the Bajie Quan style, and that's kind of like or Fai Jin. It's like a close range, close quarters fighting, where you use your elbows and your shoulders, and that's what they used on the bus. So there's a lot less of your arm flying around out of your body, but it's very much using the ends of your arm and your elbows very, very quickly, upward strikes, you know. And I studied Wing Chun Kung Fu, and I noticed some Wing Chun moves in there as well.
Nice.
Mainly because I was inspired by Ip Man, Donnie Yen's movies. That sort of Wing Chun Kung Fu in there as well. And then right near the end, you've got you know, the father who's at one point was meant to be Fu Manchu, wasn't he, in the comics, Mark?
Yeah, so it was Fu Manchu in the comics,
Yeah.
but it's kind of seen as a bit of a racial stereotype now. So he is based on Fu Manchu. It's been renamed, obviously, to Wang.
Su Wen Wu.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's been
Zhu Wu.
obviously
So
changed. Yeah.
his style was, I think it looks like the Hung Gar style, which is Jet Li used to use a lot in his films, like Once Upon a Time in China and things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's so many different martial arts styles here. I can keep going, and the use of the weapons as well, like the nunchucks and the rods and things, and, you know, and the staff. So for me, it was a cornucopia of like fighting and styles, and I loved it. And for me, yes, the martial arts are, you know, I went in for the fighting, but I was so much. I felt like I was gifted everything else as well. If that makes sense with the story, and you know. I know there was a certain amount of Marvel films always end up in a big bashy fight amongst the robots, don't they? And yes, the final scenes were very CGI heavy. You said that earlier on, Mark, and there's dragons and things going on. But within all that, there was that kind of the resolution of the film. I thought was beautiful, very very moving with the father-son relationship, and we'll talk about that later on. Let's just, for one thing, I just want to mention Aquafina. Now, I first saw her in Crazy Rich Asians. Have you seen that?
No, I can't say I have.
It's
no.
a brilliant, brilliant film. Very funny. It's directed and written by and acted. I can't remember her name. That's really bad that I've forgotten her name. But she was the kind of the progenitor of the whole film. And Aquafina is her sort of, you know, quirky mate. She kind of plays a very similar role in that than she does to Shang here, and she just seems to kind of sparkle in every film she's in, you know. And yes, I think her name was Constance Wu. I think she's the one that was mostly involved with it. But it's got loads of different. I mean, there's some very famous characters in it. You've got Nico Santos, who was in Superstore. You've got Gemma Chan, who's also in the Marvel films as multiple characters, and she's in the Eternals coming up as well.
She's in Captain Marvel, wasn't she?
Yeah,
as well?
she was. You're right. If you haven't seen it, it's an excellent Netflix film. It looks amazing. It's brilliant. It's very different to Shang-Chi. It's great fun, and it's a really good Aquafina film. She's got a really cool character in it as well. So it's worth a watch. So any scene with her in, I loved, and she was very natural, you know, and believable as a normal person. And I really liked her rite of passage from comical sidekick to this kind of world-saving archer, you know, towards the end of the film.
It's a little bit disbelieving that it's that quick, but yeah,
you've got to suspend some of your, you know, belief in it.
Yeah.
But I think that was, you know, I think that's like the everyman journey, isn't it? Someone not just Shang-Chi, who's been trained since he was 9 years old and being beaten with sticks and so on by soldiers around him, but also Aquafina. She, you know, she finds her way as well in the world. And I really enjoyed that. So talking about the characters, were there any Alex and Bob, Mark? Were there any standout characters for you that you really enjoyed? Alex, start with you.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I just think the cast was really stellar. Like they'd really they'd chosen really good you know, Asian actors to get involved, and I think that really made a big difference to the quality of it. So yeah, I mean, I liked Aquafina as Katie. I think that was really kind of it kind of held a lot more weight than just being the comic did. I think if you hadn't have had that, I think it would have been a very different film.
Yeah.
So I think she did really well. I loved Michelle Yeoh as Yingnan. She's been in there before, in others before, but I just think just the quality and of acting is really good. So I really enjoyed that, and I think Mark mentioned about Tony Leung's playing Wembley, and actually I think that was one of the most complicated characters, and what was kind of nice about it was he kind of wanted to make it about the conflict and the fact that family, he's trying to bring the family back and that kind of thing. And I think he did such a good job of like conveying that sort of level of control, but also there's compassion behind the scenes, and but like because he's used to using his power for everything, he's just lost.
He was a bit of a tortured soul, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah, and it shows like the further you go through the movie, he's much less of a caricature of
The bad guy.
A bad guy, and much more,
archetypal villain.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you start off, you only see those bits, and then you do see the courtship, which I think really is where it opens up, and he does such a good job of just kind of subtly just showing that's how when he fell for her, and then as it progresses and you get the full backstory, I think that's where he does become that tortured soul. And at the end, it's resolved nicely.
It's still a tragedy, though, isn't it?
Even though, it doesn't end well for him. But yeah, it's and I think that complexity is just really hard to do as an actor. So honestly, I thought that was the strongest part of it.
I mean, it's what Marvel do good. Sorry, Mark. It's what Marvel do well. It's what Marvel do well. They make, and you mentioned it earlier on, good sympathetic villains. Villains you feel for. It's other films don't do it as well. And I think Marvel, one of their skills of their writing teams is making villains that we feel for. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's a very good point. Like for this, you could look at Killmonger in Black Panther. You can say he's got a legitimate sort of grievance as well. You got your Thanos, who's a really good villain. For some reason now, I can't think of any other villains apart from them two off the top of my head. There's 25
what
films.
About Jake Gyllenhaal's character in...
I wasn't as
less
keen
fleshed
on
out.
that.
Again, he had a motivation, didn't he?
Yes.
And you can understand why people don't like Tony Stark very much.
Yeah, so it's not just I suppose you could look at Wanda and Quicksilver and Ultron as well. It's not just like, I'm a bad guy because I'm evil. It's like there's an actual reason for it. There's a reason he makes the choices. What I thought, I don't know if there's a subtext, so what I thought about the rings is like, on the different colours. So when we use it, he's blue, and then Shang-Chi is like yellow, because he's channeling like the good part of the ring, if that makes sense. And I thought that was a nice sort of like comparison between them as well, because the rings for Ying, sorry, I'll get his name. Is it Wing Rang? Sorry, the name of Tony Leung's character. Sorry, it's
Zhu Wenwu.
Wing Wu, yeah. So he uses them, and they're in blue because he can't relieve their full potential, but they're actually like bad for him. And I think there's a bit of a subtext there about not quite substance abuse or anything like that, but there's also things the thing you think you need the most.
Addiction, you mean?
Is the worst thing, because he has the rings, and he is like the leader of the 10 rings. He falls in love and he puts them away, and he's happy for a long time, And it's only when the wife dies and he puts them back on again, because
she doesn't die, does she? She's
murdered. Sorry, beg pardon. Yes. After she's murdered because of his past, it's he puts them back on, and he becomes that man again. The dark side to him again, and all that sort of hope and goodness that he had for those few years with having children that has just gone, and he's gone back to his old ways. And I did like the way that was all done. The way he kind of like, I don't want to say yin yang, that seems really crass, but the way he like veers from like hero to villain.
There's nothing wrong with talking about yin and yang. I mean, it's very central.
No.
Central way of thinking, central doctrine of the good and evil, and the way they blend into each other. I think you make a good point about the yin and yang, because maybe those the colour of the rings represent the yin and yang. Interestingly, I don't know if you knew this, Mark. Tony Chu Wei Lung and Simu Liu, when the rings, they never ever wore any rings on their arms throughout the whole film.
Did they not?
So all the rings you see at any scene throughout
all
the film
CGI.
Are all CGI'd in.
Really?
And so
even when he's not actually using them, they're just on his arms.
All CGI'd. And so the costume designer
wow.
had to design a lot of costumes for Tony Leung with short sleeves and his arms rolled up so that there'd be space. They had markers on his arms for the rings.
That's fascinating. I'd never have guessed that.
I know. It just shows you the caliber of quality of the effects of the film. But it's those little things I think are really fascinating. I mean, in terms of the cast that you mentioned, what I do like is just the way they brought in so many legends from the industry. Now, there's one guy, Master Guangbo, who was the kind of the old master of ceremonies, but the trainer that trained up Katie. I think ultimately he gets killed by one of the ghostly things, one of the monsters.
Yeah,
I was absolutely gutted when he died. I was like, and it's a clever death, to be honest, as well, because it's one of. Sorry, John, you were talking. Sorry, I've just come in. No, I really liked him because he plays like the miserable old guy who's actually got a heart of gold, really well. That's and even though he's not in it, he's only in the last half. It's very clever the way they do it, because he's sort of a character. Like, we're not going to kill the lovely old guy who we love, really, and then bang, they do.
He's played by, I think that's by Wao Yuen, right?
Yeah, he's very famous, isn't he?
Yeah, he was in Kung Fu Hustle. He was in The Way of the Dragon. He was in The Iceman Cometh. I mean, one of my favorite films is Kung Fu Hustle. I love that film. And Kung Fu Hustle actually is the nearest I think any martial arts film has got to in style to Shang-Chi, in that it's a sort of a high-end, high-glossy, well-produced special effects film that has humour and martial arts in it. I mean, there's loads of them, but I was reminded of Kung Fu Hustle when I watched Shang-Chi because of the irreverence of it all. And so, I mean, big fan of Michelle Yeoh, and I loved her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That's an amazing film. I love that film.
It's a great film, and so
saw that at cinema.
Again, we can have some speculation here. What I don't know is, we saw the end credit scenes. Whether they're going to be any more Shang-Chi films. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it does say that at the very end. So at the end credits. So we can talk about. Have you both seen the end credits?
Yes.
Yeah. So it does say at the very end that Shang-Chi will return, and certainly the end credit when you see. Yeah. At the end credit, when you see him with the rings have been analysed by Wong, and then they have Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner on the projection.
Yes. Bruce looked really old and tired, didn't he?
Yeah, so I think that's. So he's also as well as so it's actually Mark Ruffalo you see as Bruce Banner. You don't see Professor Hulk as he was in Endgame.
The Thanos's the Infinity Gauntlet at some point in the film.
Yes, he did. Yes,
his arm looked strapped up and in pain. I wonder if that's like him suffering the after effects of it.
Yeah, that's right. So in Endgame, he does the snap to bring everyone back, and it sort of burns his arm. And then at Tony Stark's funeral, he's still got the sling on, and in this, he's still got the sling on as well.
So that gives us a timeline. Well, I mean, they mentioned the snap, don't they? At the beginning of the film, or the blip, whatever it's called.
Yes. So I think this is around about 6 months after it's back. I think, because Far From Home is supposed to be a year after the events of Endgame as well. So I think it sort of goes after Endgame. I think it's WandaVision, Shang-Chi, then Falcon and Winter Soldier. They could be concurrently, and then Loki, Spider-Man. The way it works. So and then Spider-Man Far From Home, although it came out 2 years ago, is set before Shang-Chi.
Okay. Now,
If that
we
makes sense.
do need to mention one slightly scouse elephant in the room here, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, can we just say, sorry, very quickly as well, is that Shang-Chi's sister is also very good in this as well.
Yes.
The actress, she plays that very well. But yeah, carry on.
You mean Xiling, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't say her name. Sorry, I was gonna murder it. Sorry, yeah.
No, Xiling was excellent, and I liked her sort of the underworld leader that she was. That was great. Again, another strong character, which is great, but played by Menga Zhang, and I think she, and again, we're all just jumping from links through IMDb here, folks, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've not seen her in many things. I think this could be one of like a debut film for her. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look deeper, but she was very good, and I liked her sass. But we do need to mention, as I said before, the Scouser elephant in the room, and that is Sir Ben Kingsley. Now, it was was it a surprise for you? It was definitely a surprise for me. How did you feel about this? Was it basically a narrative MacGuffin having him in here? Do you think?
Yeah, so I was thinking, to be honest with you, if he was going to be in this, because obviously, because basically, the Wenwu character is basically the Mandarin. Obviously, in the Mandarin comics, he's like the main foe of Iron Man, etc. as well. And they do that, so it is a bit clunky. So when they
nod to it.
Yes, when they go back to the Ten Rings, like headquarters, as you say, after the fight on the not the railings, on the pipe, what I'm on about, after the after fighting the rings, they go back and then they're having dinner, and there's a bit of clunky exposition about this guy was pretending to be me and that. Yeah. So I did sort of wonder if he was going to be in it. I thought, are they just going to mention him, or is he going to be in it? And I was sort of half expecting him, but then when he popped up, I was still surprised as well, though. So yeah, I sort of half expected it, but half didn't. I thought after the mention at dinner, he wasn't going to be in it, but obviously then he comes in.
I think they felt like they had to ground Shang-Chi in the MCU, and because they'd already included him in Iron Man, I think that was why. I think that was why they were like, well, we've got to get him back as well. And there was quite a lot of exposition throughout the film, wasn't there? Of dropping a lot of references and trying to show how it sits in there. But
I think what they go on. Sorry, Alex. No, go on. Sorry, sorry.
I can see what they were trying to do. You do think, is that, I've already got my comic, but actually, I think the timing worked pretty well because at that point, the thing is that Katie's as a character was growing and her focus is changing, and so you saw her a lot less doing the comic bit. So I think he just kind of gave a bit of cutesy.
He was the replacement comic relief, basically, was he?
That's right. Yeah,
I was just going to say that's what I was going to say. Yeah, precisely that.
It worked okay.
It did make me think with all these cameos like Benedict Wong coming in and all the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Marvel have got money to throw around, so some of these cameos must have cost them. But it's great they could just do that. I quite like that. It makes it a bit exciting to watch it. One person we haven't mentioned, which we really should do, because I think he was actually a really charismatic presence, was Simu Liu, who played Shang-Chi. He's a good-looking guy, and I think it's very, very important that Asian Americans and Asian characters have been so underrepresented in films, and this is the first film that has an Asian character as in this big popcorn AAA film culture. Who the lead actor's being Asian. I think it's really, again, like Black Panther, very important for representation, and I think he was excellent as
I liked him.
Everyone's seen the TikTok video of Simu Liu and Fala Chen, and I think it was Meng Zhang as well, the three ladies from the film, all dancing around in the street with him doing martial arts. Have you seen that video? Very charming. And the last character, she can't actually do any martial arts, so obviously was body doubled in the film, and it's a bit of a joke about her not doing it with Simu Liu bouncing around, and he does all his own fight scenes. So I thought that was really sweet. And I think they just a really nice, fresh cast to have. for the film. I
He
think
was very
excellent.
likeable as well. Yeah,
very likeable. Yeah.
And then what I actually like about the character and what he does really well is that we have flashbacks. When he's sent to kill the woman, the man, who killed his mum.
Yeah.
And what I thought was a really good script point and about the character is he says that, I couldn't go through with it. That's why I fled to America. But then at the end, he admits that he lied and he did actually do it. And the fact that he did it made him go to America as well. So he did actually kill that person, which is something that I don't think has been picked up a lot in reviews or when I think talking about it. So it's not often you get a Marvel character who obviously the good guys if you look back in the films, they obviously have killed people, but it's been in a battle sort of thing and that, but they don't actually admit that they've been a murderer or anything like that.
The Nathan
probably
Drake issue, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's probably only Black Widow, I suppose, has really sort of acknowledged that, with Red in the Legend sort of thing, and sort of acknowledged that. But he does admit that, and I'm surprised that's not been picked up by more people as well.
Every good character has to have a flaw. that's what makes
of
it
course,
interesting. Yeah. And that's his flaw,
exactly.
isn't it? But then this story is a redemption story for him, isn't it? And making peace with the world and what he's done. And I think that's what happens in the end of the film with his father as well. His father makes peace with the world in some respects. This actually, what's really interesting for externally could be perceived as a bit of a fun romp with lovely set design and colours and the vibrancy of the Asian culture and the wonderful costumes at the end and all these fantastical creatures. It all seems like a very silly film, but actually it's got so many levels.
It's got a lot of heart to it. Yeah.
I think it could be. I don't think it's been underrated. Let's find out how rated or underrated it is. With our regular slot, I think we'll call it "How Successful Was It?" In terms of the takings for the film. Alex, you've done some maths again, haven't you? Tell us about it.
I've looked it up on IMDb.
Yeah,
but yeah. So this is the thing: we're somewhat coming out of the pandemic, and so there's a lot more cinematic releases. Obviously, this was a fully cinematic release. There wasn't available on Disney Plus or anything like that.
It was cinema theatres only, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And I believe that's what Disney's doing for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I think they've got that choice now. They've made that choice now.
Yeah.
It's had the highest. Is it Memorial Day in the US, isn't it? That just went, or Labor Day? Sorry. So I think it's done the highest Labor Day ever, which is traditionally very quiet in the box office as well. So it's done the best ever, and it's exceeded expectations, I think, as well, which is really good.
I think it really had. So it went in with sort of lukewarm expectations. So, and I think it's already done 259 million worldwide. It grossed 147 million in the US and Canada, which is obviously quite an important market.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of now grounded itself as that's a Marvel. It's not like Black Panther level, but it's still done well and certainly better than Black Widow, for example.
Yeah, so I think it's the sixth lowest, but I was really saying it's actually the change in opening box office was actually better than the first Captain America, better than Thor 2, I think. And better than Ant-Man and a couple of others, I think, as well. So actually, it's done really well because it's the pandemic as well. It's done really well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. So Black Widow did actually do more than that.
That's what I've just been checking.
Sorry, but the thing is, you've got to remember this is quite early in the window, whereas Black Widow isn't. The other thing that Black Widow had is it was on Premier Access on Disney Plus, so it'd be really interesting to see that split.
Yeah,
because I definitely think that the cinema release is the best place for it.
Yeah.
I would like to see it come out on demand and Blu-ray and it's going to earn well. It will need some time for that.
I think what happens is Shang-Chi is stronger. It's got more longevity because of the cinema. So it's got a stronger box office. It had a stronger box office in its second weekend, I think.
I think its word of mouth is a lot better than Black Widow as well. So,
it's important that we do compare these because these are the two films, aren't they, that we have that are the Disney experiment, and because obviously Black Widow has all this controversy about the
lawsuit, isn't it?
With Scarlett. Yeah,
It
so
was such a poor film. That film. Sorry.
I think that's the thing, because this is the thing for me. I'm like, I really want to see Shang-Chi again.
Yeah.
So I actually saw it twice.
Yeah.
I saw it on IMAX, and then I took the family to see it on. So I'm loving the unlimited card, but I am thinking like, great. Now I want to put that on in the background or on a Saturday evening and just watch it when I'm not having to go out for that, and I so I can easily see myself either buying the Blu-ray or
I'm definitely buying that.
Digital.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I think if you've been listening to this, it's a very resounding success, and we've enjoyed it a lot. Yes, it's hard to say in this day and age, because we used to ask each other this question: would you buy this? And you've just mentioned this. Obviously, if you've got Disney Plus, this will come to Disney Plus eventually, as will Free Guy, Mark.
But I'm still going to buy it though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one I would buy. In the olden days, I would buy in a flash. Add it to my martial arts film library. So yeah, if this is the resounding success, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this world, these characters.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the little nods to Captain Doctor Strange as well with Benedict Wong.
Yes,
and they're I think these are little
and Abomination as well.
Yeah,
he fights Abomination.
That's right.
So, yeah.
These little teaser teaser hooks, because they went off with them, didn't they?
Yes.
So we'll see more of them later on. So I think we'll round it up there today. We'll just keep it focused on Shang-Chi this time round. If you haven't seen it, why are you listening to this right now? Go and see it.
Yeah.
And I hope we haven't spoiled
Go
it
and
too
see
much
it again.
for you.
It's a great film.
And join us again for another discussion. So let's just do some housekeeping as always. Alex is on Twitter at. Go on, Alex. Tell us what you are.
Alex Hansford.
Mark isn't on Twitter, are you, Mark?
No, I'm not on Twitter. No,
as I always say, a good thing in some respects.
Yes.
You can find Play Pause Turn at Play Pause Turn or at playpauseturn.show. I'm wrecking this. Sorry, Alex. He's giving me the look.
Edit.
How will we find you, John? How will we find you?
How would you find me? Oh, yes. I am on Twitter.
Yeah.
At John PR Evans. Personal Relations is my middle name, you see.
Yes.
And you'll see, most recently, you'll see me waving my new Mandalorian Darksaber around. I'm going to give you a little preview here, folks.
Very nice.
Look at that. That is cool.
Yeah, there we go.
I also have a Hulk bash start and Captain America in there that I can't really. It doesn't really make a noise, unfortunately.
No,
I can tap it with my ring, maybe.
Yes.
Let's just say that.
We've lost it, folks. We've lost it here. We're all very tired. So this has been Play Pause Turn, and thank you for listening.